You ever seen someone with swayback posture with rounded shoulders, collapsed chest, and hips that are pushed forward? In this video, we're going to be talking about swayback posture, why it's caused, some of the exercises that we can do to overcome it, as well as some of the assessment measurements that may be skewed based on this presentation. Hi, I'm Effer, founder of Resilient Training and Rehab, and I've helped thousands of coaches and practitioners get better and faster results with their clients. Let's get into it. When we're talking about swayback posture, a lot of people will chalk this up to be about tight muscles. And this is caused by tight muscles in the front of the chest, back of the hip. And although that is true, that's not the root cause of it. So today we're going to talk about the underlying mechanisms as to why this happens. And so the first thing to think about is when we think about a swayback posture, we're thinking about a sternum that is being pulled down in the front. We got a six-pack muscle attached to the top part of the pelvis, to the bottom part of the rib cage, and when it contracts, it will pull these structures together. Okay, and so that's when we start to get this collapsed chest, because this is being pulled down and the pelvis is being pushed forward and tucked under. Now, the reason why this happens is because someone's center of gravity is so far forward, they need something to catch themselves so they don't fall over. So what they'll do is they'll rely on muscles like that to basically flex their rib cage back to almost catch them from falling over. So these people are really far on their toes. And what people will try to do with these people is they'll try to do exercises that drive hip extension, or they'll do chest stretching exercises. The problem with that is it's not addressing the issue. The issue is their center of gravity is really far forward. And so what happens with these people also is if I've got this compression going on the front part of the rib cage, and I've got the pelvis being pulled underneath, I've also got a lot of compression on the back side of the rib cage and the pelvis, because that's pushing me forward. And so now I've got to compress the front to catch myself from falling over. And so what will happen is I've got compression on the front of the chest and compression on the back of the rib cage. Now, when this happens, I don't have the ability to flex my arm or extend my arm. So this motion here, we've run out of space to be able to accomplish that. But because I've got this squeezing happening like this, the only space I have available to me is out towards the side. Same thing happens to the pelvis. I've got tension in the back part of my pelvis, tension in the front part. So now the femur doesn't have the ability to flex or extend, but it starts to go into more of an abduction, so out towards the side, or you see knees that are caved in. So it only has this space in this frontal plane or the side-to-side plane. And so when it comes to exercises, that makes it even more apparent, because when we put them into, let's say, a push-up position or a pressing or a rowing position, you'll see the shoulders rounding forward excessively. They don't have that space. Right? You may be seeing elbows that are bowing out towards the side, or you see elbows that are really hyperextended, and so you start to see this inside part of the elbow start to be exposed. These people have run out of room to move in the front and the back part of their hip, so we have to give them exercises that require movement out here. Now, because they have so much stiffness in the back part of the pelvis, you're going to see measurements like hip flexion or straight leg raise that really requires opening of this back side to be limited. You'll also see internal and external rotation be limited. Same thing with the shoulder. You're going to see limitation in shoulder flexion, pretty severely limited, like they only get to like nipple level, so like 60-ish degrees. They won't have shoulder extension. As soon as they bring their arm behind them, they're going to round that shoulder forward. And the internal and external rotation of the shoulder is also going to be quite limited. And so when people work with these kind of people, they don't know where to go because they don't have such limited range of motion. They don't know where to start. And so typically with these people, we have to reduce gravity. So if their center of gravity is so far forward, you have to think it's like there's a barbell on their back constantly pushing them forward. And now the front part of the rib cage is compressing to hold themselves back. So does it make sense to just do a bunch of stretching exercises in the front of their chest? They have stiffness in the front part of their rib cage because it is the last way to prevent them from falling over. So if I just open this up, does that not just push them even more forward? So what we have to do is, despite the fact they have this rounded rib cage that looks like they're shifting their way back towards their heels, we have to think about opening up the back part of the rib cage and the front part of their chest simultaneously so they can get back into their heels a little bit more, so they don't have to use this tension strategy to prevent themselves from falling over. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover a couple exercises that are going to expand the front and back of the rib cage and the pelvis simultaneously, so that we can then have more room to flex our arm, extend our arm, so we're able to actually sit back in our heels a little bit more effectively. So the first exercise we're going to do is going to be a modified oblique sit. So essentially what this exercise is going to do is put the femurs in the position that the sockets are being in. So for example, when we have this swayback posture, we have these people who have squeezed glutes, so they have no butt. And what this does to the pelvis is this opens the pelvis up like a flower. So it puts the sockets in more of an externally rotated position, which just means they're facing out towards the side more. And so when this happens, if I were to put my leg in front, for example, then I'm going to have the pelvis do this. The socket is going to have to face forward. But right now, they're in this externally rotated position. So if I were to try to put their leg in front of them, they're just going to turn their whole pelvis like this to do it. And so you probably see this with people who, when they do split squats or single leg deadlifts, they open up that back leg. That's because they're trying to turn their pelvis to make sure the femur and the socket are lined up. So with this exercise, we are going to put the pelvis on top of a half foam roller, because that's going to naturally mobilize the pelvis to create more of this shape, so that we can open up the front and the back part of the pelvis. We're going to do the same thing by lying on top of this ab mat. You could use a towel or a pillow, because this is going to also side bend the rib cage. It's going to accomplish the exact same thing at the pelvis and the rib cage. And then through the other movements, we're going to create pressure on this top leg down into the ground. That's going to also create this motion. And so when we set up for this movement, what you're going to do is you're going to have your belt line on top of this half foam roller or foam roller. I prefer to start with a half foam roller or a towel, just because it's a little bit lower to the ground. I'm going to have my rib cage on top of the towel, pillow, or this ab mat, and I'm going to rest my head on something so it's nice and relaxed. This bottom arm is going to reach away from you. So pretend like someone's pulling that arm. What that's going to do is going to put you on the outside part of the shoulder. Okay, why I like that is because it's already turning your rib cage, so now we get the front and the back simultaneously already opening. Because as I turn my rib cage towards the left, this front part of my chest is open. But because I'm laying down on this side, I'm going to open up also the back part of this right side. If you want to see a video of me talking about thoracic rotation more in depth, then click on the link right up here. But for this exercise, how we're going to do this is, again, we're going to lay on this side. We're going to have this foam roller really digging into the hip. And then with this leg, I don't want this leg up top here, which you can see is in line with my hip, because that's going to just turn my pelvis away from this side. I'm going to have it nice and relaxed, down maybe at 45 degrees, enough that I can keep this outside of the knee gently on the ground. I'm then going to take this left leg and I'm going to cross it over the right leg so that my leg isn't caving in, but I'm able to, in a relaxed position, just keep the knee in line with that first or second toe. Now what I'm going to think about doing is pushing the outside part of this right knee into the ground. I should feel maybe my hamstrings kick in, maybe a little bit of glutes. And then with this left leg, I want you to pretend someone's pulling it. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take this arm and we're going to put it behind us. Okay, so if I were to stand up, you'd see that this right arm is reaching, so it's like I'm turning towards this left side. What this arm position is going to do, like I said, because it's out towards the side, it's going to open the front and back part of my rib cage. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a big breath in as I reach this elbow towards the ground. Don't lift up your head as you do it. Just think like a little passive reach. As you breathe out, you're pushing the outside part of your knee on the right side into the ground. Breathe in, reach. Get a nice big stretch in the left rib cage. Breathe out, press. with the right leg. You feel that hamstring kicking on, maybe a little bit of glute. You're gonna do about 2 sets of about 6 reps of this. So for the second exercise, what I'm gonna get you to do is lay on your stomach. Again, we're gonna take that ab mat or that towel or pillow, and we're gonna put it underneath the lower part of the rib cage and the top part of the pelvis. And so essentially, again, we've got this pelvis that is being squeezed at the back, and then it's being picked up at the front part of the pelvis by that six-pack muscle, right? So it squeezes forward, keeps on going forward. So now I need the six-pack muscle to catch me and tilt me back. So by going onto my stomach, naturally, that's going to cause my pelvis to tilt more forward, right? Then when I've got this ab mat there, that's going to block how far forward I can go. So I don't, again, want it to go this far forward or really tilt where I'm arching my lower back, because that's then going to cause more squeezing on that back side. But if I have it tilting forward and then relaxed on something, now I've created some pressure in the front part, I can actually start to open up the back. So that's the starting position. Now, as I mentioned before, I've got a pelvis that's opened up like this. If I take one leg out to the side, not at 90 degrees, but maybe at about 45 degrees, you can see how that socket's facing out and down. Then when I push the knee into the ground, I'm actually going to be able to create some type of muscle activity of the adductor muscles, the groin, which is going to help open that pelvis up a bit. So now I've created this position of the pelvis, which is what we want more of. Because if we have that position, we get the front and the back part of the pelvis to open. So you're going to lay on your stomach, you're going to have your left leg out towards the side. But again, you're not going to do it 90 degrees, you can do about 45, just something that's nice and relaxed. You can keep the inside part of your knee on the ground. Then what you're going to do is you're going to create a spade with your hands, and you're going to have your forehead go into that spade. And what you should feel is your elbows are going to be going out towards the side. So not so much that your elbows are so far out that you're shrugging, but nice and relaxed down at this 45-degree angle again. When you breathe in, you're going to press to the inside part of your wrist and the inside part of your elbows. And you're thinking like you're kind of pushing yourself up. I don't want you to actually lift up. I just want you to think like you're pushing your chest in between your shoulder blades without crunching. Your head should stay on your hands. When you breathe out, you're going to push the inside part of your knee. That press, again, is going to open up the pelvis and create space in that side. So you're going to breathe in, press the inside part of your wrist and your elbow. And as you're bringing your chest up so you're not collapsing into the ground, you're going to push your knee into the ground, which is going to open up the front and the back part of the pelvis on that side. You're going to do about 2 sets of about 6 reps on each side. So this exercise is a little bit of an integration of both exercises, but this time I'm going to hold on to a cable. What the cable is going to do is it's going to create some traction in my shoulder. These people who have a rounded shoulder, they not only have a shoulder that's rounded, but they've got a shoulder that is being squeezed into that socket. It's being pulled up into the socket. And so what the cable is going to do is going to pull the shoulder out of the socket a little bit. That's going to create some space in the rib cage. By having it out in this frontal plane again, I'm going to get the front and back part of the rib cage to open. By laying on top of that half foam roller again, I'm going to create that internal rotation shape of the pelvis that is going to then open up the front and back part of the rib cage. So with this exercise, all I'm going to do is breathe in as I let the cable pull me. Breathe out as I push that foot into the ground. So breathe in as the cable tractions, and every time I'm letting it go further and further, but I'm not letting the cable pull me off the ground. I'm staying on the ground. I'm just letting the shoulder blade wrap around the rib cage. That is important because if I let it pull me off, then I'm just going to be side bending and crunching, and that's just going to further perpetuate some of that tension that we're trying to overcome. So you do this exercise again, about 2 sets of 6 reps on both sides, just to keep it consistent. I would do this as part of a warm-up or a daily routine, just to be able to reduce some tension in the front part of the pelvis, in the front and back part of the body. If you like exercises like this and you want to integrate this into a program, check out my Rebuild Blueprint. It is all about incorporating this kind of exercises into a strength training regimen. We can use strength training to also overcome these type of postural limitations. It doesn't just have to be breathing exercise on the ground, but integrating some of the posture program exercises with the Rebuild Blueprint, you get everything all in one. So if that's something that you're interested in, click the link below. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this helped. Don't forget to like, save, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.